All right, welcome back, everybody. Today I have this super cool game for you. It's a game that features a broken ladder that gets played out on purpose, and it's very exciting. It also has one of my all-time favorite players, Rui Naiwei, who is a nine dan female professional who is she's a little older now, so she's no longer the strongest woman player, bar none. But back in the 90s, early 2000s, she was basically beating almost everybody in the world, not just other female pros, but she actually won one of the domestic Korean titles in 2001, I believe. And in the she beat Yi Cheng-ho in the semifinals of that tournament to get to the finals, and then beat Cho Hae-hoon to win the final, which was those were two of the strongest players in Korea at the time. This was just a little bit before Lee Sedol came onto the scene, and they were definitely the two strongest players in Korea at the time. And she beat both of them and won a title. So pretty awesome on her part. But let's see how this game goes. And I'm not too familiar with the white player. I know she is also a female professional, obviously, but I'm not sure exactly where this game was played. And we see white actually doesn't even bother going into the corner, just approaches directly, and then gets into this variation, which is not, I don't think this is common when black makes the three space pincer, but white gets into this. Complicated fighting. This is called the Taisha. And it's not played very often anymore because it's incredibly complicated, and there are easy ways to not play this complicated variation. Back in the day, this move is a little more modern, and it might look weird. The old move was the Hane into the corner to keep the liberties on these three stones really tight. And basically, we get in the situation where like white pressures the lower side, black pressures this side. Both sides barely live, like super small, and then like white runs out these center stones and black runs out to the right side. But now another move that black can think about is this one, because if white like connects here, then black can jump out like this. And white can't jump in here and separate the stone because this comes down. And also, if later you get to do this, then when white does this, like you can just cut or clamp or whatever because this cutting point is covered. So it's kind of it looks slow and weird and bad shape, but it's actually in this Joseki, it's a playable move. But that's not yeah, so if we continue the game here, go over, white jumps out, and then this is typically white connects here instead of creating this complicated situation, but I suspect that maybe white has prepared for this game because, here it looks like, oh, maybe, black could come out into the center, but then yeah, so here black can't really do this because I believe white would just do this and capture these three stones. And even though black gets to decimate this side, white gets a big corner and a lot of thickness as well. So this is probably evenish. White could go back, take the empty corner. But I feel like, black played in this corner first, and to get an equal result is probably not satisfactory for black. So black comes back to threaten the corner, because now that we're out on both sides, this corner does not have a living shape. It's a little dire. And we see, white is building some thickness on the outside. We'll see how this goes. And then white takes aim at this weakness over here, which is really interesting. Black, again, it's like, okay, well, you could just take the outside. I'll take this big corner. And it's kind of, this is also good for white, but, black is out on this side, and black took a big corner. So there's, Atari. Again, it's kind of hard to evaluate, but this is not the game. In the game, white turns in the corner here, which is kind of crazy because this is obviously a dead shape. Black does anything else. Um, if white tries to live, black can just take this eye point, and there's not two eyes in here. So this looks a little confusing, but the problem is that white has a lot of liberties in the corner, and this black group only has 5 liberties right here. So white's kind of trying to capture these 5 black stones. Uh, And all right, let's go back to the game here. So in the game, black, Hane is here to kind of create this shortage of liberties situation. Black cuts through, white connects, and then this is crazy. White cuts on the outside, but black is able to connect underneath because white can't play here. It would be an Atari. Oops, cancel. So, white captures here, but black gets out. And then in order to keep black from just capturing these three stones and living, that gives black the opportunity to jump out here. So it looks like, okay, black is going to get, is out now and is running. If this were a white stone, it would be really dicey because you could just kind of close on the outside and keep the liberties fairly small in this group. But as it is, it doesn't look too promising for white. But white does get a throw in here, and this is really slick. I thought this was just so cool when I saw this sequence. White's going to use this series of Tesujis to limit black's um, liberties and create this shortage of liberties situation. So black has to come over here, and then white extends over here. And the crazy thing is that black can't quite kill the corner as is because there's some really interesting, aji in the situation. Um, like if black makes a placement here and white descends, black connects, you can see that, black just barely gets, out of this with enough liberties. So, it's a little, and white can also start this off here. Let me just show you this variation real quick. White can do this. Obviously, this is an Atari, so black has to capture. And now, when white does this, in order for black to kill the white group, black has to play here. But now white has started this ko for this group. And you'll notice that, black can't just connect to get out. He's still an Atari. So, if black wants to kill this group, he's got to start this really vicious ko. Whereas if black goes back and connects now, well, white could capture once just to put these in Atari, black would connect. But you might as well save that for a ko threat at some point and just connect here and you've got your two eyes in the corner, no problem. So it's pretty cool that white has this living Aji in the background here. Black pushes out, yeah, this white extension is likely Sente because I doubt black can survive a white turn right here. Since this is a false eye at 04, if white turns here, it would be very hard for these black stones to live. So, and now we can see white does go ahead and kick off this initial co-variation, but you'll notice black doesn't immediately just try and kill. Black says, you know what, I'm going to Hane up on this side. That kind of limits your influence in the center. It makes sure my group is out. And the other thing too is that, these stones in the center are pretty strong. Like they don't have eye shape, but they're pretty strong. They've got influence. So for white to start this ko and just threaten to capture these stones, it's big. I mean, it's 8 stones, so I mean, that would be 16 points, but 16 points sounds like a lot, but it's still just an endgame type situation. So there's other things that are more vital than just capturing these stones and taking them off the board, although it would be nice. White takes Sente to press this group that's, has no eyes at the, well, maybe it's got one right here, but basically has no eyes. Black comes out, white jumps, and then this is crazy. So the thing is, white's just turning to attack this upper right-hand corner now. And white is just playing so aggressively, just like, like, I'm going to claw your eyes out. It's pretty crazy. But this is a really neat technique to, you put this pressure, you make this, like, knight's jump to attack, and then when black jumps out, you turn and you focus on the upper right. Because now with, the before when it was just A and there were, it was just black stones, but after we get B and C for white, you can see now we've got like this 3-on-1 situation in the upper right hand corner. And this black group is still doesn't have eye shape. I mean, it might get an eye down here, but it might not as well, because you can see things like there's possibly, once black does plays this Hane, there's possibly like you do this throw in and that, and see we don't have an eye here anymore. So that's one, potentially dangerous thing. And the danger of this is if we just ignore it to say, okay, well, I'll connect here because now I'm definitely getting this eye, is that now like we really can't like connect back. Like, even if we do this one, and white does something else, and we do this one, we're still in Atari, so that doesn't help at all. So that would basically guarantee that white could win this situation anytime she wanted to. But as it stands, black Hana is white crosscuts, and then we get this pretty complicated variation, and black's going to give up a lot to get something. And the thing that black is going to give up is just this, you know, giant situation on the upper side. Um, and also the fact that, these five black stones are weak, although so is, these white stones in here too. But it's just kind of a mutual weakness situation. You can see black fighting to get out, doesn't want white to just link up super easy. And then this is really aggressive since black's alive now in the corner with, all these extra moves. Black doesn't care if this gets cut. Yeah, black would be fine with this. Black can just jump out or, in this type of shape, this might be the move because this could be really brutal. I mean, white can still come out, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this would be working. Mmm. Oh no, that black's an Atari. Never mind. That's funny. So just really complicated fighting coming through here. This is just getting, really, really dicey. And here white actually reinforces this group because you can see it's starting to get kind of surrounded, even though it's a big, thick group normally we'd normally think about. But black jumps out, white jumps out. Black comes down to pressure the top and get some shape for herself. White pushes in the corner, and then ignoring this is really dicey because, like, after this Atari, it's like, are you gonna get like, look at this whole black group. Like, it doesn't have. I mean, it has the eye here, it has the eye here, so it's alive. But like, you can see that maybe those eyes could be taken away. Actually, I guess even if white Atari's here, black can just descend, and it's not a thing. This black is fine essentially, but it's still, I mean, it just shows you that, like, black is like barely alive on the first and second line on the whole right side, but is out into the center as well, so it's not really in that much danger. But you can see after this, like, black like defends this to keep the whole group having access, because if black doesn't do this, these moves start to be sente, like you have to respond to all of them. But if black's connected to the outside, all a white move, like black does whatever, all a white move like this does is reduce black's territory by like 4 points. Not really that big of a deal. It's like, yeah, we could do this, it's not, not even, actually, is that sente? Yes, it is. So we would actually have to connect back because after this, we have to save that. And it's like, yeah, we lost a few points, but we don't have to respond to the initial Atari as long as we can escape to the outside. And that's a nice thing about when you're connected to the outside, like, attacks against the base of your group are never sente, as long as you have, like, stones you can run to in the outside. It's not like completely surrounded. But if you have access to the outside and your opponent, like, attacks your base, you can ignore it because it's just about points. It's not about the relative safety of your group, it's just about territory. And if something is just about territory, it can often be ignored unless it's like actually the end game. Here's a technique. You throw in first to create the co-shape. And basically black takes eyes in the corner and lets white take a few points on the outside to keep the eye shape. Black jumps out first. Black pressures again, keeps pressuring this group, which is totally surrounded, needs to survive. And here we can see black kind of sketches out like a big moyo in the upper left corner, but it's too loose at the moment. And so after black attaches here, white just comes in, thinking, it should be relatively easy to live coming in at the, 3-4 point. Black says, well, I don't want it to be that easy. White punches, peeps in response, black resists, white connects, black comes back over here. And this is a really good sequence because you can see, like, the easy thing to do here is just connect and let white get this. But if we do that, white's gonna live in the corner just so easy. So instead of connecting, that you should always look to see, can we do something else? And now one thing that white could do here to be annoying is counter peep like this and make black like actually connect this as a bamboo joint, but that's not that big of a deal. It's probably better to just do like white does, connect, and let black get the first move over here. White's got a plan, just to kind of scratch and claw. And here you can see white gives up the stones in the corner to, make the group on top 100% alive and expand its territory a little bit. Now black comes all the way back here to resolve this coast situation by connecting here, because now we can see if white captures here, that's not big, no big deal. Like black can just give way, and unfortunately this ko is not a ko for the eye because white can play here and just be alive. But this basically says, when black connects here, black is saying, you know what, the biggest thing on the board right now is just to not lose like all these stones in here. But the reason that it's more important now instead of earlier in the game is that if black doesn't play this now, it's really easy for white to rescue this big string of center stones at A by capturing the group at B. And after we've played all these stones, the group at A is not actually that strong anymore. It's really crazy. Like the point at C is not even a guaranteed I at this point, because black can just Atari at D and then connect at E. So this A group, as big as it is and as much influence as it had at one point in time, is basically weak now. So it's important for black to connect this to keep white from capturing the B group, which would just make the A group alive and strong. So the reason this is big is not because we need the territory of the B stones, but because we're looking forward to attacking at A. Or attacking the A group, not at A. White has to come back and live, so this connection's even sente. But it's really cool how white was able to eke out life in this space by threatening the ko. A super, super slick maneuver by white. Black approach, as you can tell, this is kind of the biggest area. And actually, this is a good point. So why does black approach here instead of approaching here? Like, in some ways, this makes more sense, okay? Like, this is an extension from our own stones. It helps the cutting point at A quite a bit. Like there's very little, like white can't really cut at A anymore and get any sort of result once this stone is out here. And even, like an invasion at B, black could probably just play C. So, this is a good solid move. And if you made this move, or if this was your first instinct, it's not terrible. But there's a reason, and a pretty clear one, of why the side at A is bigger than the side at B, and that's basically that A is the wider side. If we just count, how wide the side is to the next white stones, we can see it's 7 points wide. Whereas this side over here is only 5 points wide to the black stone, So this is, since the wider side is on the left, probably the best move to play is at A, to break up white's big potential rather than build on our small potential at B, because there's just not that much in here for us, whereas there's a lot in here for white. So this is just, it's really hard to tell sometimes whether it's better to build your own position or break down your opponent's position, and this is an easy way to decide which one is bigger, is just see which side is wider. Like, just that simple. Count the points, like how wide is the side. White pincers, black Hane is over here. It was like, hey, you're not getting any territory in here, just so you know. And then now, like, is actually just gonna say, okay, now that you responded this way, like this is just really like how a professional thinks is like, okay, you pincered here, which makes this, actually, let me go back to letters, which makes the area around A big. So, since the area around A is bigger now, you emphasize this area around A by pincering. I'm going to destroy that as potential. Next move, white plays for influence. Black can still easily jump in at A and get, a living shape in here, or probably attach at B. There's probably multiple options. Attach at C, you could counter approach. I mean, there's lots of different possibilities, but, these options in the corner are still available. So white's in, like, saying the outside is the most important area. And the reason is really, really clear, because if we look at this board, black has a little bit of territory on the right, like maybe like 5 points. And a little bit of territory on the bottom, maybe like 7 or so. Let's say 12 points between the right and the bottom. Actually, a little more than that. Let's say 10 points on the bottom. 5 points over here, 15. Roughly equal. Now, white has the 2 points in the lower right, plus these points in here, let's say that this is just a little over 10, like 13 points plus 2. That means that, the white territory on the top and the lower right is about equal to black's territory on the lower side and the right. Which means, and white doesn't have any other definitive territory, but black has this big corner up here. So black is about 15 points ahead on the board at the moment, and white's only real potential to make territory is in the center. A little bit in the corner, but the center is really the only way that white can make territory. So that's why white is trying really hard to build an area where they can get some more territory, because they're behind on the board right now, and there's not much that they can do to attack black. So again, white emphasizes the center with the last move at A, and black immediately plays a move to reduce the center and then wedges. So it's just kind of like, oh, this part's important. I'll make sure that that's not worth anything for you. Oh, this other thing is important. I'll make sure that you can't do anything with that either. And here, black gets into this fairly crazy variation because, you know, there's a lot of white stones around. But the reason that black, I think, is confident in getting away with this is that the A group is, I don't quite want to say that it's weak. Like it's not like anemic, like it's about to die, but it's not strong and it doesn't have eye shape. And then the B group is not alive at all either. Like neither group has any eye shape at all. So we have one weak black group over here, but we've got two weak white groups. So black, I think, is confident of handling this situation. Comes out, comes back. The we get into, white does manage to seal this off a little bit because white doesn't want black to connect out now. So that would just be miserable. And at this point, it really is starting to look like if white wants, to win, the group at A sort of needs to get captured. And unfortunately, it's really tricky, but this is actually where white loses is at some point in here, possibly at this move, white has read out this ladder that arises and realized the ladder is good for white, so plays this move, which is pretty much the game deciding move. Because we do this and it seems like, okay, pretty standard, pretty natural here. Black comes back with this Atari though, and as we mentioned, this ladder doesn't work, so white probably saw the ladder and saw, oh, the ladder doesn't work. I'm fine. I'm just going to play this. But surprisingly, if at this point we think, okay, maybe black is sacrificing the A and B stones so that, black can just come out with this Atari and then maybe jump and connect at the bottom. Like that would be one thing. That would be a thought. But black has a much more severe line of play, which is to just keep playing the ladder out even though it doesn't work. And then at this point, come down like this. And again here, white can't, do anything too crazy because, like, if white just ignores the situation to, try and get some eye shape for this group over here, this is still a ladder. Like, or actually, maybe it's not. But there's probably a way to capture it regardless. So white has to turn, and black captures, or black connects here, and astoundingly, all of a sudden, the A group is dead. And white actually resigns here, and which is pretty crazy. All of a sudden, just to see like one player just play out a ladder sequence and then resign afterwards, even though it was your opponent who played the broken ladder. And this just takes a lot of vision because you actually have to see, well, what happens if we actually play the ladder out? And the reason, now one thing that you might be looking at is like, granted, black captured the A group, but didn't white capture the B group at the same time? And the answer is actually maybe. But even if the B group is 100% captured right now, it's not as big as the A group. And so, since black was already ahead in territory and just got the bigger capture, there's not really any way to go for white. And the more that I look at this, the more I seem to think that white needs to come back and kill it. Because let's say white says, okay, let me preserve the most territory possible by blocking here. Because the other thing too is if white does come back and do this, then black is definitively ahead on the board after making this move over here. Like there's no way, and not even on the board, but like 15 points ahead on the board, like way more than Comey. So if white does this, which would the game would be close if white could do this. It seems like black can Hane here because basically black can do this, and in order to kill now, or at least 100% kill. Because white would have to like descend here or Hane or something, which lets black cut. And because this is an Atari, it just seems like this was, I think, the strongest resistance that I could find for white. But what I found is that you do this Atari, and actually it looks a little weird, but I think if you just extend out like this, black actually gets enough liberties in this variation to come back into the corner and capture white. Let's see if we do this. No, that wouldn't work. Comes down. Do we have to make an eye? Hmm. Okay. Oh, actually, what if we come down like that? No, that still is not. Huh. Have to go back and look. Or possibly something like this might be working as well. No, because this still you can just capture. This is a very tricky situation in the corner here, but I seem to recall, I think it was based off of this variation, that there's a way for black in this situation. If we just descend. No, that doesn't quite work. Oh, actually, no, it does. Yeah, this is how it goes. Because see, the thing is that white can't Atari here because it's a self Atari. So white has to come back and capture, and then black will just live in the corner like this. There's a lot of variations. I played over a few before I started this review, but basically, the other thing is that if white protects that cut, the problem is this, which means black can start a ko for the life of this group, and a ko is absolutely a success for this because black has way, way, way more ko threats than white does. And the thing is that this is a total picnic ko for black because if we imagine that black is essentially saying I'll kill the A group, you kill the B group, but white then has to fight a ko to kill the B group, even if white does, or I mean, even if black just does something like this, threatening this 6 point capture, which would be about, oh, 6, 7, 8, 9, about like worth like 10 points, like, obviously smaller than the value of the ko, this is more than enough for black to win. So, if this turns into a ko on the left side, it's just game over. So anyway, I thought this was just such a cool game. Let's just go back and see that final killing sequence because we're in this fight. Like it looks kind of dicey with these stones. Like oh, we've got a couple friends we can run to, but what's gonna happen? And also pay attention that this even though White made some good eye shape around A, this whole dragon still is not 100% alive. So that's pretty epic. And then this was probably the game-losing move because it sets up that ladder that White was assuming was well, it is good for White, but I mean, it also costs White the game. So White comes out, and it's just kind of probably didn't really see this until Black plays here, and then was like, oh, that's what Black was thinking. My stones at A are just dead now. Because it's like, unfortunately, like the point at B isn't even like a solid eye yet. You still have to connect at C before point at B is an eye. So this group literally has no eyes and no real eye shape. I investigated a little bit, seeing if white could try something like this, but nothing works. It's pretty easy to read out once you start looking at the variations. There's pretty straightforward refutations for everything white can try, because black can just do this, and it's like, yeah, white can make an eye. Making one eye isn't too hard for this group, but making two is impossible. And so, just such a cool game. It's so rare to see a broken ladder played out in professional games. I just thought this was super cool. I had to share it. It was, just epic. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and thank you for watching.